To me, AI is about the possibilities. If you can create an enterprise brain that's obviously much more powerful and intelligent than any single human brain in an enterprise, but that also means you have to redesign your enterprise around it. So that's truly the transformation. 30% of this is technology, 70% of this, I believe, is all about driving change with your business sponsor. So
What was the biggest surprise for you?
what surprised me was like how quickly it is actually the fastest adopted tool in the store environment to date.
Hi, everyone. This is Prat Moge, host of the AI Fabric Show. I'm super excited today. We have an amazing leader who's joined us in this conversation on agentic and the evolution in the enterprise. I'd like to introduce all of you to Chandhu Nair, who is the SVP of Stores, Data, AI, and Innovation at Lowe's. And Chandhu, great. Thanks for again joining us. It's great to get a few minutes of conversation with you. Chandhu again has a long and illustrious career doing startups, being as a leader in large institutional brands, sort of that are known, including Staples, Lowe's, and then probably really consequentially, he's just written a book on the enterprise brain, a collaboration between him and two other leaders in the industry. So I'm really excited to obviously get to know about his journey, get his perspective on where the industry is going and what organizations can do to learn. But also, I want to learn a little bit about the book. Chandhu, I tried to get the book, but Amazon unfortunately delayed the shipment. So I was supposed to get it last night, and I was supposed to like be up all night like reading, but I did not get it in time. So I guess what you'll have to sort of share with us what the book is about, and then we'll make sure we let people know so that they can order the book as well. But anyways, thanks for joining, Chandhu. Really appreciate the time.
No, thank you, Brad, for having me. And it's always exciting to talk about another leader with another leader who's pioneering something in the AI space. So it's glad to be here, and I'll make it a point to make sure that I get to a book soon. No
You
worries
should.
there, but happy to talk about it today.
Okay, awesome, awesome. So I'm firstly like super curious, Chandhu, on I know you're based in Charlotte, but your journey in the U.S. has gone. I noticed you were in Boston, which is the great city I live in now. But just like back to where you grew up and sort of your early years, kind of what sparked the idea and the excitement for you to think about data, AI, retail. Like I know you have a lot of interesting analytics background. What kind of sparked that? If you could share some of your early journey and mentors that shaped you.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, so I'm originally from southern part of India. So traditionally, as you probably know, Brad, you grew up there. You were either kind of looking to be your parents wanted to be an engineer or a doctor. My parent wanted me to be a doctor. I couldn't see blood, so that was off the table pretty quickly. But I did like computers, so I started playing around with computers and did my degree in computer science. And I'm an engineer at heart. That's how I am. But I'm an engineer who likes to connect things, connect people, and bring solutions, build a company around it, right? So that's been, kind of my mental model, if you will. Um, Now, a lot of things, just like any young kid growing up in India, a lot of things comes through, being at the right place at the right time. That was kind of how I got into retail, if you will,
Mm.
because this was early 2000s, just like we are talking about AI. E-commerce was kind of the big thing there, and I happened to work in a very early stage startups, spin out from a large company which was doing the back end of e-commerce, basically
Oh.
the order management, the shipping, the logistics. So that was just kind of being an early engineer there, shaped my thinking around how fast the world is evolving, and that eventually got acquired and eventually became part of IBM. IBM's commerce practice, and that kind of put me in the map with retail, because then the next phase of me was literally trying to implement this technology in various retail or retail related spaces, and that's what got me to US, again, early 2000s, originally with DHL, as
Mm.
DHL was running the 3PL for a lot of e-commerce for Nikes and
Mm.
Microsofts of the wall. So that's where I got started in Scottsdale, Arizona, believe it or not. So and then started moving diagonally east coast. For some reason, I must have loved the weather and the cold and the snow. I don't know why. But did a gig at Gap, launching their Piper Lime brand. Essentially bootstrap in a building, empty building, to with all the automation, all the data, getting the e-commerce side, getting the shoes to be shipped out. Those were to me very formative part of
Cool.
my journey, if you will. Um, and then I decided to come to Boston, a city I love. I spent majority of my adult life there before I moved to Charlotte. Did my master's there and worked at Staples. And Staples, I saw two things at Staples. There was definitely a pre 2008 period of Staples, and post 2008, there was a transformation work which our CEO brought in and brought a lot of West Coast leaders and to their, mostly from Amazon, eBay's of the world. And one thing that struck me, fantastic leaders, one thing that struck me was how they leverage data to drive the growth of e-commerce business. Yeah, and and they gave me plenty of opportunities. The second thing that has always helped me, I talked about being at the right place at the right time. The other part is there's always the helping hand that pulls you forward to kind of the next thing. And I'm grateful and lucky to have a lot of leaders who've helped me along the way. Um, and it was one of those leaders who pulled me into that space and looking at running the retail business with a very data centric mindset. And then it obviously became, how can I harvest the data for more and more, and started running a analytics space um, to the point where I was starting to work with a lot of Boston area startups ecosystem, which was fantastic exposure for me. That's one thing that definitely, this, Brad,
Yeah.
Boston provides, right? So obviously, when you start working with startups, that bug will catch you at one point or the other. And I decided to move out and build your own startup, and I created this company, Cognitive Retail, which was looking at all of the camera systems in the stores and help drive optimizations with the store safety, etc.
Oh,
And I could see firsthand the power of AI. This was not when AI was as popular as it is, etc. But that my time at building a startup and really trying to scale something with AI gave me a lot of lessons that I carry to this day as a leader. And then the next opportunity, and the COVID hit. We went through some changes within the startup, and then but I knew some leaders again. Talk about
mm,
the helping hand here, leaders at Lowe's, and I decided to come here and work, originally in marketing and digital space, and then took on the broader data and AI challenge, which the world got turned upside down in November of 22 and with ChatGPT, and
right.
that's been the journey there. But the theme has always been surrounding yourself with great people, just getting the mentorship and the helping hand from the right mentors, and just being always a curious learner
Yeah.
and continuously learning. And it's very important in today's world as you're going through that same shift with AI and generative AI. And
Yes.
that's been kind of my part. So there is something you learn every day,
Yeah.
just from the people you meet and everything that you can read about these days. It's much more easier to learn these days.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. No, thanks for sharing that. Um, I mean, I ran into your CEO recently, just like this past week, coincidentally, and he's very excited about AI. And what struck me, Chandu, was there's a clarity of thinking, I guess, from top to the folks all the way in terms of like what AI could do and how it could help and how does it fit in with the organizational goals and objectives, which I was very impressed with. So I learned about Mylow and learned about a bunch of cool things. And so let me ask you this, right? The book that you've just published, The Enterprise Brain, I found that perspective to be fascinating because a lot of people are talking about AI and how to adopt AI and what can you do with AI. It feels to me like you've gone further and you're really sort of thinking about it not as a technology, but you're really thinking about the truly sort of the transformative power of AI and putting it to practice. So could you share um, what is this book about? What was the genesis of the book, and some of the key sort of the summary or the tenets that you outline in the book?
Yeah, absolutely. But before I say that, I should say I'm glad you met Marvin. He's been a big champion of, it really goes down to that top leadership
Yep.
and being able to connect to the either and the growth of the business with it, which is really, I think AI to me is, there's a lot of talk about AI and productivity. To me, AI is about the possibilities, right?
Yeah.
So if you start there and can anchor that to your growth strategy for the enterprise, I mean, I'm grateful for working under Marvin and his set of leaders who are all thinking that way, and that makes a lot of my job easy. So not to digress, but coming back to the book, you're absolutely right. I think so. The book is called The Enterprise Brain, and we kept that name intentionally. And the core thesis of the book is this, right? So if I were to take you back to Industrial Revolution, the machinery, the machines, which was really technology at that time, what it did was, it really decoupled the muscle
Mm,
from the core business or the enterprise, right? So because the machines could do more than the physical limits of a human, but what that also meant was, businesses had to build factories and redesign themselves around it. So this decoupling of the physical muscle from the business or the enterprise meant you need to redesign it around factories, new types of job titles, the layouts, the flow, everything changed.
mm,
So that was the first decoupling. The second decoupling is what we call as the decoupling of the nervous system of the enterprise. So with digital, with computers and internet, you could collect a lot of data, more than what a typical human can process, at any point in time, and you could share that across the world. That meant, you again redesign the business, you redesign the enterprise around it, right? So you have global supply chains possible, you manufacturing in different parts of the world possible, you workforce in different parts of the world possible. So you truly, while it was a technology shift, as a business, as an enterprise, you redesigned themselves yourself around it. So that was the second decoupling. So the muscle got decoupled, the nervous system got decoupled. We believe this third decoupling is about decoupling the brain. That's what AI is doing. So if you can create an enterprise brain that's obviously much more powerful and intelligent than any single human brain in an enterprise, which is how it is today as well. You take away a lot of information asymmetry that happens in a traditional enterprise, but that also means you have to redesign your enterprise around it. So
mm,
that's truly the transformation. It's less about the technology shifts itself. It is a critical part of building the spine, but you got to build everything around the spine. If you want to move from not just from speed to decision, speed to actions, right? Like how your brain would make you do things. You really have to redesign it. So that's the core thesis of the book. In the book, we intentionally didn't say this is not about predicting the future or trying to make it a playbook for everybody, but we wanted that conversation to start, and it has to start with people. It has to start with how do you enable the people to have the superpower and take away the information asymmetry that may be limiting them in what they do today, so they can redesign what the new factories would look like, what the new global supply chains would look like. And we walk through some of our thinking and frameworks around it, and then obviously the technology side of things, and truly an enterprise operating system view, if you will. So that was the thesis of the book. Hopefully, the book comes to you soon from Amazon.
yeah. I'm looking
And
forward. And can you give maybe one or two simple use cases so that some people understand what that means, like in terms of applying a technology versus designing it so that the process is designed to leverage the technology versus the technology, like,
yeah.
accelerating the process. You're basically talking about rewiring the process to take advantage of the technology.
That is absolutely right. I mean, in our world we call it like you got to, as any business leader leading a specific function, you kind of have to reimagine the business,
Right.
as though if you're starting the business today and you had the leverage of this technology today, how would you rethink the business that way, right? So, and I'll give a simple example of like what we were trying. You just talked about Mylow. Mylow is our online agent. Anybody digitally can come in and ask any home improvement question. We have a similar one called Mylow Companion. It's an agent we've deployed in the stores. And if you think about a Lowe store, it's a 100,000 square foot store, multiple departments and categories, right? So lawn and garden to, I'm sure you've gone through some sort of home improvement project, and so lawn and garden is there. You got appliances, lumber, you've got rough plumbing and electrical, like, and I do a lot of store walks myself, as I learned through how's the technology getting operationalized. And you have to wear a red vest walk in the store. One of the things, there are a few aisles that I don't walk when I wear a red vest and walk, like rough plumbing or electrical, because if a customer would come and ask you that question, I don't know the answer to it, right? And it was very difficult to do that, and there was trade specialists and people who could do it. So you couldn't pick somebody from lawn and garden and make them come and work in other departments. And we used to have hours and hours of trainings that will help the associates to get trained on all the different categories. But these categories are evolving, each products are
Mhm.
evolving. We've got 40,000 plus SKUs in a store. That is it's hard to train everybody on everything. But talking about the possibilities with AI, now you suddenly have an opportunity with generative AI to really have this companion and a set of agents inside it that can help you on how to address any project solutions for your customer. So how to build a deck, or how to build a raised garden bed, or how to fix a leaky faucet, doesn't matter, but it is all available for you, right? So
Yeah.
that's the solution. But if you think about that solution, you now need to look at, how you have your associates in the store, um, supporting the different categories to change. That process has to change. You kind of have to give them the confidence that you have this tool that you can now train. So we had to work with the store operations leaders. It was a hand in hand partnership, and we walked
Mhm.
several stores in this process to say, hey, when a store manager does a Monday morning walk, how do you let them know that you can use this tool, so you can now support multiple categories? How do you create these champions in the store who actually can help drive the adoption of these tools? So effectively, like, fundamentally, how retail operations used to work in any retail or in any home improvement, you now had the possibilities of reimagining that completely with this, right? So just to put that in perspective, those are some of the learnings we had, because the
Got it.
technology by itself, if I just rolled it out as one more app in the
Right.
store, it really didn't matter, right? So
Yeah.
but we got to drive up the confidence of the associate. We have to make them feel good, and we also had to get feedback and change, right?
Yeah.
And I'll give one more anchoring example around that, which is, we had a lot of ideas on what this product could be, and all the features, just like any product teams would have. And once we rolled it out to about 10 stores, we realized, like, one of the things that every associate is doing is speaking to it, like, and
Yeah.
then they would, obviously, the agent would respond back, and then they would listen to it. That's because nobody wants to type
Yeah.
on the phone when you have a customer in front of you. So we said, okay, we needed to make it, voice based.
Yeah.
We consistently collect that feedback from the floor, and then the trainings and the enablement also had to change. So it was a very hand in hand of
That's
operationalization and the reimagination of the store workflows with the technology roadmaps. If
what
that helps, yeah.
what was the biggest surprise for you as you kind of saw this? Anything that kind of stood like clearly out where you're like, I didn't expect this. This is like a non-obvious thing.
Yeah, I think the biggest surprise, we initially thought this would be super helpful for some of the newer workforce. So if you get hired in, you would
Yeah.
expect much more. But what we saw was, we saw several tenured associates in the store who have spent years in, let's say, in the paint department,
Yeah.
now been using the tool because they are confident to go in and work in other areas, right? So
Interesting.
we thought the trend would be that all the newer workforce that's coming
Yeah.
in, which would obviously use the tool. But what surprised me was, like, how quickly, and it is actually the fastest adopted tool in the store environment to date.
Awesome.
With and it's credit to the business leaders and how they operationalize it, how they reimagine the business, how they worked with the newer workforce and the tenured workforce, and giving them the same level of confidence.
Got it. Got it. That's awesome. By the way, I was in a Lowe's store just 2 weekends ago, my wife and I,
Thank
and
you.
we're looking for house plants. We go and get like 7 or 8 plants. We put them on the cart, and then both of us are looking at each other. We have two Siberian cats at home, and so we're like, wait a minute, which of these plants are the cats allergic to?
Mhm.
And we were like on Chat GPT trying to sort of figure out, and that kind of took me back to like, and I didn't realize this, but maybe Milo could help
Yes.
me.
Yes.
If I could sort of say, tell me which are the plants that, are toxic or things like that. I mean, this is something that can really help, shoppers basically, like, make.
Absolutely. That's what Mylow does. And we enable the same on our app
Yeah.
and Lowe's.com. So you could ask that same question and
Yes.
get that answer, because those are real problems.
Yeah.
So the key was to make sure that we address real problems for our customers and our associates,
Right.
and then do it not as a technology solve, but operationalize it with how you rewire your business around
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So now, change management is something that I think you note a lot also in your blog post, and I'm sure it's a big part of the theme. So how do you get an organization rewired, assuming this technology is here, Chandhu? Like, what are you seeing as kind of how do you get folks to change, to adopt? Changing the business process is not easy. How do
Yeah.
you re-engineer? Any observations, any thoughts, any just like in terms of the for business leaders and tech leaders to sort of take away in terms of do's and don'ts?
Absolutely. And look, I think I'll say that with the caveat that we're still learning,
Yeah.
and it's continuing to be adapted and evolved. But number one thing, you talked about our CEO, Marvin, it comes top down, right? I think
Mm.
it's, so we intentionally created very specific, more leadership in the age of AI programs for our ELT and SLT leadership team and every officer, plus in the company, as a way to kind of make them rethink, how should you think about leadership in the world of AI. So that was a big part of it. Two is, it was important that as leaders in a company, we set the example by using the tools that is available to us and start using that in our staff meetings and things like that, so that everybody feels comfortable about doing it. Third is, we had to anchor on the point that it's about the art of the possible, and it can really superpower you as an associate, no matter what function you do, right? So that was a big part of how we worked with HR, our training partners, etc., and communication partners around it. The other thing that we've also done is we work with every business function to run these reimagination, rewiring sessions, to help them kind of think through this, right? So I've got a transformation office team that's set up to effectively look at that, and also track that to the outcomes, and we can see if some of the leading indicators on the adoption is happening. Is that a technology solve, or is that because you need to rewire something in the workflow or the process? We start ahead by kind of looking at the processes, the workflows, the skills, etc., and then try to see what needs to evolve or change. But then it's not a one-time thing. It has to be
Well,
ongoing, and we enable the business functions to with the tools, the workshops that is needed to kind of bring them on board. And it's a continuous journey,
yeah.
with this, because some areas, like the field, like field roles like stores, supply chain, there's different techniques that apply. And then what I've also learned is in the corporate headquarters, SSC, store support centers, as we call them, a lot of knowledge functions that requires very different types of change management
Mm.
methodologies and tricks. And we continue to put that into a playbook and continuously adapt. And reinforcement learning, just like in AI, is key uh, as well for
Uh,
humans. Yeah.
there is also like sometimes in rollout, there's like very high expectations, and at the same time very low tolerance for
Mhm.
things that don't work out. Like, if you've seen those, and if you see those, how do you manage that?
Yeah, so I think it's important to start small, iterate with a lot with all of these things. And in fact, Mylow Companion is a good example. We started with really 2 stores,
Mm.
iterate, but everything, in the age of AI, you can build and make changes fairly quickly. And if you have a committed business sponsor for that line of business, you can work with them to iterate. But it's also about setting expectations. When we started, we said, hey, this is only going to be 60% accurate, because to bring in all of the tribal knowledge that is
Yeah.
there, and the wisdom that is there in the stores, you need to get them to engage on the tool and give if the feedback and the recommendations are right or not. but we set expectations up front, right?
Got it.
Saying that but the more you use it, the more you can get it. And then there are things that we thought would work, like I said in the roadmap. Then we said, well, that's not what the associate wants. They want the voice. So we had to be very nimble and pivot. So that's, we created a very good initial like measurement framework to say what are the leading indicators. So before you go to lagging indicators like financial outcomes, let's make sure the leading indicators are taking us in the right direction. And if it is not, then we have to make choices. Right. So that's an ongoing exercise of how you roll this out, and starting small and iterating is super key. And it's
So
also
like
important, I feel like, from an innovation standpoint, from a culture of innovation standpoint, it's important.
so like engagement and those kind of things, they could be the leading
Correct.
indicators that you sort
Correct.
of want
And
to make sure.
engagement, net promoter scores, we
That's
use
right.
something called as LTR, or likelihood to recommend. We saw, I mean, now it's been a year since we rolled out. We see about a 200 basis point improvement in LTR, which is significant,
That's
for
awesome.
in the store. So we track that, and we know that as we do that, I mean, service levels are getting better, which means the sales are getting better, and we can track that as well. So that's the idea.
That's awesome. Any parting advice, particularly to, on the, we talked quite a bit on the business leaders, but there's also a transformation in tech. There's a transformation in leaders who understand agentic and can you basically go do whatever you are doing in terms of like collaborating with the business leaders. Like, how's the role of the data AI leader shifting, Chandhu? And any any thoughts like in terms of um, advice to other aspiring leaders in the profession?
I would say, just from my learnings, two things that I would say. One, you have to be very nimble, and be a curious learner,
Yeah,
continuous learner. You know this, Brad. I mean, you got frameworks coming at you every hour. The
mm,
model
right.
is improving by the minute, and which actually means the scaffoldings that you're building to build applications are getting thinner. So you kind of have to be very nimble and have to pivot your ways of how you've traditionally dealt with, data, to surfacing up insights,
Yeah,
to surfacing, or to actually go into agentic actions or human actions. So it's a combination of both. So that's an important part. Two is 30% of this is technology, 70% of this, I believe, is all about driving change with your business sponsor. So it's really bringing them along,
mm,
helping them reimagine the business. Not saying you kind of know how to run their business, because I don't know.
or
But here is how you could think about your in the world of AI, helping them understand this, and that goes a long way in building the credibility, and also them giving the space, like you said, to iterate and test new things, and test your way into. And it's important. I mean, this is happening fast, so I always call it as a fast race on a tightrope, right? So
yeah,
so you kind of have to balance that, and I think your traditional data AI roles are becoming much more of a transformation role,
right.
and there is a tech component to it, no question, but it's becoming much more of a transformation role.
Awesome. Awesome. Speaking of that, I'm looking forward to seeing and reading the book. Chandru, thanks so much for joining us and sharing, very interesting perspectives. Really appreciate the time and the conversation.
Thank you, Brad. I really enjoyed the conversation as well.
Awesome. Thanks. Take care. Bye.